Welcome everybody to Go Local Live, a special episode. We are now live with Olga Enger, a photographer, journalist from Newport, Rhode Island, owns the Studio Newport down there, an accomplished photographer. She is live in Minneapolis. Olga, thanks so much for joining us.
Thanks for having me, Josh.
So listen, you were there, you had left Newport, the irony of all ironies, to go back to where you're originally from, Minnesota, and get away from the spread of the coronavirus, and you step right into it, into the biggest story in the world, certainly in the past couple days. Talk a little bit about your experience in going out. We'll have some of the photographs up on GoLocal, but some amazing photographs captured of the violence, the riots that took place over the last 24 hours.
Sure. My sister and I decided yesterday that it was really important to bear witness to the riots. We were watching it on television, and as I know firsthand as a reporter and as a journalist, that isn't always telling the full story. So we got in the car. We were nervous. We were two white women. We didn't know what it was going to be like to walk into a race riot, to be honest. But when we got there, what we realized is that the enemy wasn't the mobs. It wasn't the crowds. The looters are actually just a handful of the people. It's a few kids. The mobs are they're angry. They're crying for justice. They want these officers arrested. They want justice for George Floyd. We were taking pictures. I've taken pictures of numerous protests, numerous events, numerous emergencies. I did not anticipate us getting in the throes of it. Unfortunately, there was a mob in front of us. The officers turned around, and my sister and I were on the sidelines with two other bystanders, and they threw tear gas directly at us. If anyone's been tear gassed, you know it's extremely painful. Your face is burning, your eyes are burning. I was throwing up. I have asthma. I opened my eyes looking for an ambulance. In the other protests that I've been to, primarily white protests, political protests, there's ambulances in every corner. There was no medical personnel. It was a wake-up call for me as well, that we had to take care of ourselves. A woman came out of an alley. She poured milk all over our faces, which soothed the burning. Now, with hindsight, I really believe that the officer had targeted us because we were holding cameras. We were the only people with cameras. There were very few white people. There was no mainstream media there. Later, we stayed and we witnessed officers not only throwing tear gas, but throwing tear gas and flammables into cars. It is my opinion that these officers were not only not doing enough to mitigate these mobs, but they're actually instigating it here in Minneapolis. And now my hometown is burning, and it breaks my heart. I think that these people are just waiting to see justice for George Floyd.
Listen, you live in one of the most idyllic towns most of the time in Newport, Rhode Island. You go out there, you see firsthand the amount of friction at the highest level that maybe the country's seen since, in the last 20, 30 years. Rodney King is maybe the only other episode that seems to be quite so toxic, so powerful. What was the reaction of the crowd as the tear gas was hitting them?
Well, at first, it's fear. I have never experienced tear gas. I didn't even know what hit me until it hit me. I heard my sister's screams. But let me tell you this. Once you get hit by tear gas once, as I think the crowd already had been, maybe previously, when you see the next time when I saw officers either raising their tear gas guns or the grenades, you run, and that's what happens with the crowds. So what happens is they throw the tear gas, crowds scatter, and then when we came back, everything was in flames.
How many structures, you saw a lot of this, how many structures did you see burning?
We were there during the day in St. Paul. This was before the escalation in the 3rd Precinct in Minneapolis. But we did see the TJ Maxx was on fire. There was the Target was on fire. We now know several of the grocery stores were on fire. Unfortunately, as everybody saw on national news yesterday, the police department was on fire. So we are now going back That's why we're wearing our hat. We've learned from our experience that you have to cover yourself up as much as possible. We're going back now to assess the damage in Minneapolis.
You know that community, it's where you grew up. Would you have ever thought from a standpoint, I mean, I've been to Minnesota, I've been to the Twin Cities a couple times. It's a very relaxed, calm place. It's amazingly civil, at least from the visitor standpoint. Would you have ever expected that this would be the lightning rod to really a national discussion about race, a discussion that we seem to have over and over and over again?
No, Josh, that's what the most shocking thing is, I guess, for me personally, is that we are known, at least nationally, as being a very progressive state. We're very diverse, we're very progressive, but now I'm actually questioning that. How progressive are we? It's heartbreaking. It's a lot to absorb.
Are you surprised? You know, there's always the urban, rural. We've had a GoLocal out in Portland, Oregon. Portland's very different from the rest of Oregon. That's much more rural, much more conservative, much more gun ownership. Does that have the same dynamics in the Twin Cities versus the rest of Minnesota?
That's a good question. No, I still think that we consider ourselves very progressive. It's a very liberal state for the most part. You don't see that outward gun owning, gun toting type of mentality. But I guess the lesson learned here is that it can be underneath the surface. I had no idea that our police actually have a reputation here in Minneapolis for being controversial, for being aggressive. Several studies have shown that this is not the first time that something like this has happened. So it's shocking.
I mean, listen, for us here, we saw it obviously with the death of this week. We saw it with the arrest of an African-American Latino CNN reporter this morning. And in your experience, saying, listen, they looked at you, they saw your camera, they saw you as a threat, and they were going to make sure that you were going to get out of their way. That's a transformative experience. What do you hope to capture in your photography today?
You know, I'm still a reporter. I like to go into any scene unbiased. But what I have learned, even more so than words, photos don't lie. So today I'll go in, I'll see the damage. Yesterday I saw a lot of angry people, very few looters. And today I'll go back into it with an open eye, and we can see the damage. We can see if people are outraged. But I anticipate that nothing has been done. These officers still have not been arrested. So I anticipate that the rage will continue and escalate.
Do you see this continuing? You know, listen, it happened the last 3 nights. Will it get busier tonight? Busier Saturday night as folks go back out onto the streets at night?
So on the streets yesterday, we did hear reports that the Black Panthers are en route and expected to arrive on Saturday. So yes, I mean, I'm not a mind reader, but I do anticipate that this is not going away anytime soon.
The prosecutors who is in charge of the officers' cases, the 4 officers, one obviously the mayor of Minneapolis has said he should be prosecuted for murder, seem to have escalated the amount of anger in the Twin Cities by her saying, listen, we're going through a process, this is going to take some time. And the reaction, I think, of many people, both in Minnesota and around the country was, you know, did you see the video? Was that response by that prosecutor only inflaming the amount of anger now being demonstrated?
I can't answer for the rioters, but I just know from firsthand that they kept chanting no justice, no peace. So they want to see an imminent arrest. They want to see these officers charged. They want justice. So I can't say if that inflamed the rioters, but I can say that this is not going to go away until something is done.
The first night that a supposed looter, an alleged looter, was shot and killed. Last night, I understand, as of this morning, there was no loss of life, but now you have the National Guard deployed, the entire state police or state police of Minnesota now deployed. Is this just going to continue to progress into potentially more violence?
Again, I can't answer that, but I do hope, as this is my hometown, as much as I hope that they can quell. I hope that the fires can stop. I hope that these people can get some sort of resolution. I would urge my hometown of Minneapolis to take action, and to take action quickly, because our city is suffering and the country is suffering.
Olga, you get the last word. Tell Rhode Islanders what they need to know about what your experience has been during this incredibly historic time.
Absolutely. I would just implore people to bear witness, and bear witness with an open mind. Yesterday, when I went down to those riots, I was of the mindset this might not be the best. How can you cure racism with war? How can you cure racism with violence? But do listen to the people, look at different perspectives, look at blogs, check out my Facebook post later tonight, look at the pictures. Also look at mainstream media. Together, all of those things tell a more complete picture than a few clips. And we all have a responsibility in this. We all have. This is not one bad apple. This is not one bad cop. Every single one of us have a responsibility to heal and cure racism.
Olga Enger, thank you so much for joining us. Talented photographer from Newport, Rhode Island, runs Studio Newport, out there capturing the conflict going on the streets of Minneapolis. I want to thank everybody for tuning in. This story will be up shortly on GoLocal. 12 noon, we'll have Dr. Michael Fine, former Director of Health. 1 o'clock, we'll be carrying the governor's press briefing. Thanks, everybody, for tuning in.
Thanks, Josh.